Plenty in the news these days about work-life balance, and that's great news for us considering, hey, we're a work-life balance show. So in this episode, we're going to talk about some of the things that we've been reading lately.
Maintaining a work-life balance keeps getting harder, but it doesn't have to.
This is The Big Balance, a podcast for anyone struggling to stay ahead or even just keep up with work, life, and everything in between.
Join us each week for practical advice you can actually apply
to get a little sanity back in your day.
Hey there, old friend. It's me. Did you miss me?
Hey there, old friend. It has been a while. It has definitely been a while.
It has, and I thought that was the cheesiest, creepiest way to lead us in. How you doing?
Hi, friend. Yes, it was creepy. I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I think you are doing a little bit, I don't want to say worse, but you definitely have a lot more on your plate than I do.
I'm a little bit more tired. Yeah, you were gone for a really fun reason. I wasn't gone for a not fun reason. I was gone for a joyous event. But actually not even gone. I've been here a couple weeks. Two out of the last 3 weeks, I somehow managed to scrape up episodes, even though I've been deathly tired.
Well, kudos to you for that, because that was impressive and enjoyable. I'm glad we could keep our quasi-streak going, even with a little hiccup.
You know what I noticed, though? When I tried my damnedest to go for our typical 30 to 40 minutes, it is impossible to do by myself.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have a topic. I'll have what I think is a really good outline to talk about. Whole thing gets done in like 15 minutes. So it's really just us bullshitting that goes on for 45 minutes. These could be like 10-minute episodes if we didn't bullshit the entire time, like I'm doing right now.
Well, I mean, it's... I kind of look at it as the idea of one's more commentary and the other one's the written version. So Solo episodes are usually very outline focused, where we go off on our tangents, have fun.
Well, speaking of fun, so anybody who's been listening last couple of weeks knows what I've been up to. But John, what have you been up to? The audience wants to know.
Well,
audience needs to know.
Well, I got married. I think we teased. I think we teased it a little bit leading up to this week. Obviously, leading up to my absence. But, got married and then went on the honeymoon pretty much right after. Honeymoon was great until it wasn't, though. I think
great until it wasn't.
Yeah, anybody who...
It's a 3-star review on Yelp of the hotel. Great until it wasn't.
Well, as part of international travel requirements coming back into the country, you need a negative COVID test. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Oh, God, I know where this is headed.
Yeah, so I tested positive the day before we were scheduled to leave the resort, which in turn turned into about an extra 5-day stay, this time in quarantine. So didn't get to enjoy the amenities aside from the lovely, lovely room service food. So,
well, wait, tell me how this works. So did you, I guess first and foremost, did you stay at the same place as your honeymoon, or did you stay somewhere else?
Yep. So they kept us at the same resort, and we were fortunate.
That's good.
Yeah. We were fortunate for the first 2 days of our 5-day quarantine, which actually it was 6 because they count the first day as isolation. But they kept us in the same resort, and for the first 2 days, we were in the same room, which was one of the honeymoon suites. So
nice.
So we had all these same amenities. So fully stocked bar, top shelf liquor, just kind of refilled whenever we wanted. Did a lot of reading. For those first 2 days, we were able to dip our feet in the little swim up pool that we had at the resort. And then comes day 3, and they move us to what feels like the quarantine quarters.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a room that hadn't been updated probably since the resort opened in 1981. It was pretty dated. It wasn't.
It's been sealed the whole time, so there's no COVID in
well,
there.
I think that might be the plan. I think they sent us to basically, it feels like we were like lepers who were outcasted, because we could totally tell the people in the room next to us were also people who were waiting for like negative COVID tests. This guy was out on the little like balcony area coughing up a storm, sitting there. Didn't see him break the threshold of the little like patio area that we have. So I was like, yeah, this
it's like the lepers wing in the hotel.
Oh,
it's terrible.
Quickly became a pariah on the resort.
Well, how does that work though? So like, were you not allowed to leave your room? Or did they put like a big scarlet C on your chest? So if anybody saw you, they shushed you back into your quarantine zone, or
so
what?
you would think there would be something a little bit more formal other than the nurse telling me to go back to your room. Somebody will call you. So you get back to your room. Somebody calls you, and they're just like, "Yeah, don't leave. We're not supposed to do anything. Just kind of stay in the room, and we'll, kind of play it by ear, see how it goes." Rachel never tested positive the entire time we were down there. So she, I don't know if I should be saying this. I might be getting myself in trouble. Didn't necessarily stay in. She didn't leave the room. I'm gonna say. I'm gonna say that. She didn't leave the room per se. But we stretched.
It would have been hilarious if she just pieced out back to the U.S. Like, you can stay. I'll see you later.
So you say that, but we had a conversation because the manager of the resort, and who was basically kind of giving us the feedback and guidance, was like, I know it doesn't sound great, but if you want to avoid having to do another 5-day stint, let's just say we get to the 5 days and I test negative, and now Rachel.
Oh, what if she tested positive? Oh, my, yeah.
So the manager was like, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but we recommend the other person with you kind of leaving as soon as they can. So we had a serious discussion about, like, I was like, I'm comfortable with you getting on a flight. I'll survive here. But no, she didn't want to leave. I mean, it's like, she was like, what would I say? Yeah, I just left my newly married husband alone in Jamaica in a foreign country with a positive COVID test. No, I'm not gonna do that. So we waited it out, and fortunately, we both tested negative and were able to leave. So it wasn't a hurdle we had to cross.
So here's a conspiracy theorist in me, all right? I just had a call with, I forget what the product, it was a sales call, some guy trying to sell my company something. And he was doing some international, he was in Europe doing some international travel, and he got COVID, and he had to quarantine. I'm thinking, that's awfully convenient for any hotel owners. Oh, you have COVID? I guess you're spending 5 more days' money here.
Well, here's the kicker.
Some guy with a spray bottle spritzes you with COVID as you're walking out the door on your second to last day.
It didn't come out of our pocket. We didn't have to pay for those extra days. We had travel insurance, which was a requirement for the resort we were staying at. So we didn't have to go out of pocket for those extra days.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, no, the manager of the resort wanted us out of there as quickly as possible. So they didn't, because we're just eating away at costs and resources at that point.
So you're not poolside, but you're still getting so it's all the food, none of the skin cancer, basically.
Basically, yeah, and I got burnt while I was down there, man. So it was doing me a favor. I think we've kind of gone off on a little bit of a COVID tangent. This is the first time Brian and I have had an extended conversation since both of us have been back in the country and COVID-free and not having a newborn on their chest, I guess, at the moment.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the last time we talked was when we called rap on the last episode we did together.
Yeah.
It's been that long.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad we were able to shoot the S a little bit, right?
Indeed. Well, on that note, John and I both have been out of pocket. John literally out of pocket in quarantine. So we've both been out of the work-life balance game a bit. Coming back into this episode, we thought, let's read up on the news, see what's going on in the world that we can talk about to get back up to speed. And that's what we're going to do today. I have no actual topic intro. So.
All right, here's what you can use. I don't know if you ever watched those old like Law and Order commercials or ads. It would be like ripped from the headlines. So here we go. This week on The Big Balance, ripped from the headlines. John and Brian take a look at, I don't know, some shit from the headlines.
That was the most anticlimactic way to end that.
Right.
Your follow-through game is not strong when it comes to just
ad-libbing. Don't talk to my wife.
I'm sure I'll come up with something.
I obviously had no intention of that actually being the real topic intro.
Do you want to do yours first?
Sure. Right. What I'm going to bring to you is, I think we're saying pretty topical because this is from yesterday. From CBS Pittsburgh was the local affiliate, I guess, who published this. Employers learning employees now need more than just a paycheck. I think we've been arguing for this on the pod for better part of a year now. So this this doesn't strike me as some grand revelation. But I think the interesting thing about this article is the company that they're highlighting, a company called WorkHuman, and I don't know why, I just want to keep calling them WeWork, so that's not going to be a good mix-up if I do make it. But they're the one company that's trying to bridge the gap between employers trying to hold on to workers and what workers want. And without kind of
I like that you read it like that, because I feel a little bit of derision with that kind of a mission statement, so I'm glad you kind of tongue-in-cheek that a little bit.
Right, and I think, again, we don't try to be cynical, we just are. I read through this, and we will link it in the episode's description, but I don't know. Without kind of going down the rabbit hole of looking into this company, just from a grand mission statement perspective, I don't really know what they do. And I guess,
What is it you do here?
Right. And I guess to kind of call it back to something you and I have had discussions about before outside of the pod is really the why in anything we do. And it sounds like they have an interesting why, I would say, because this sounds like it's just like kind of striking while the iron's hot and just kind of hopping on something that seems like, hey, this is a hot commodity. This is a topical thing to talk about. Let's be a quick startup and kind of just get in here, make some money, and get out.
I mean, we started a podcast for the same reason, though, but we're not making money.
Yeah.
So
we're not making...
Does that make us better or worse? I don't know.
I don't know. We're not making much money. You don't have to completely spoil it and say we're not making any money, right? But,
buy our T-shirts.
Right. Which we don't have.
A lot of I've noticed this. A lot of shows that we talk to, that I listen to, that we kind of are in this little podcast social circle, a lot of people are putting out merch. Like, are we behind the eight ball on that? Everybody else seems to be doing it and doing it well.
Well, I mean, I think it's a fun idea. I don't know how much of an appetite there is there, but if this is nothing but a vanity project as a podcast, why not just make it a physical manifestation and make a shirt?
I saw my face, just my big fat face.
I think it's
all over a shirt.
I think it's like both of our faces in like caricature format, just kind of like, like almost like one body, two heads, that kind of deal.
Oh God, that's freakish.
Yeah, no, we're a freaky pod. We're now going to be under the horror sci-fi subgenre too now on
Well, work-life balance, we could have scales in one of our heads.
Oh,
now it sounds like a severed head thing, though. This is getting very grim.
Yeah. This has been fun, but to reel us in a little bit. So yeah, really what this article is saying is we as employees have gotten the taste of the good life, and we kind of assume certain perks are kind of a given now. So work from home flexibility, that's assumed. So what do employers do to really take advantage of this knowledge that they unlocked from this WorkHuman metrics, whatever they're using to quantify this, polls, surveys, whatever? How do we take advantage of this, and how do we improve the well-being of our employees? The one recommendation they make, I'm hesitant to call it a solution, is really a recognition program, and it's a way for employers to show that they care about their employees a little bit more than just a good job or a pat on the back. And that's where my blinkers kind of go off a little bit, or my spidey senses, to where I'm pretty sure every corporate organization I've worked for that was a larger firm has had something like this, and I feel like it's never effective. So, again, the cynic in me is like...
Well, they're always superficial is why, yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, this is your big grand revelation, is that employees want to feel better than just a paycheck. They want more than just that. This, to me, is just so self-serving and self-satisfying that I guess that's why I have such a negative taste or a negative approach to this article. Am I being harsh?
No. Well, here, this is the bad taste that I got, and it was basically right away. Let's talk about the title of the article. Employers learning employees now need more than just a paycheck. Why? This sounds like it's breaking news that employers are just now learning that people want to be treated like people. Like this, why is this considered this revelation for anybody? Already I'm kind of put on guard that this is making it seem like, oh, employers were just tone deaf to why people were stressed out and burnout. Now we figured it out. No, the things that this article talks about, things people are feeling, they're not new. And it's not even just since the whole COVID thing started. This is not a 2-year-old issue. This is a workforce issue. I mean, the entire time I've been working, right? The entire time many people have been working. And to act like employers are just now learning what employees need, and it's more than just a paycheck. It seems maybe not tone deaf, but definitely behind the curve.
This isn't some grand revelation, I think is what I called it earlier.
Right.
This isn't some, to your point, this isn't a new problem. This isn't a post-pandemic or pandemic-adjacent problem. And I guess that's why the comment around snake oil. I think this is just kind of a fly-by-night consultancy who's coming in and just like, hey, we got all the answers. It's because we've referenced a Gallup poll or maybe had Gartner help us with it or something. You know what I mean? It's just, I'm very cold on this article is what I'll say, despite the fact that I'm hot in my my reaction.
Let me say one more thing that kind of sets me off a little bit, kind of got me wrong. I'm gonna
go
quote.
For it. I love it. We're just laying into this company. Prove us wrong, work human.
Yeah, you used the phrase "people got a taste of the good life." And that's actually a quote from the article, and I'm gonna read that paragraph. People got a taste of the good life, laughed so-and-so, PhD and Senior Director of Analytics. They realized they wanted more of that in their life moving forward. The word that gets me is the word laughed. People got a taste of the good life, laughed so-and-so. Like, it's just, it feels patronizing. Like, oh, silly little worker. No, you got a taste of the good life, did you? Oh, it's so nice. It just sounds pandering, and but between the quote-unquote shocking revelation of the title and laughing that people got a few crumbs of the good life, it just, I don't know.
I guess to kind of end us a little bit on this, because I feel us just going down a rant rabbit hole, and I don't think that's what we want to do today. If it is, hey, you're listening, so you already found out if it is or not. But can I just
I'll edit it real nice, don't worry.
But can I just say that is the irony lost on them that somebody making comments about workers' emotional states is somebody who is from the analytics department? Like, how do you put metrics behind happiness other than something like an NPS score or something like that? Like,
it's like a Pixar movie where the little robot finds a butterfly and marvels at the free-spirited natural world from its robot vantage point. Beep boop, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anybody from Work Human, if you want to reach out to us, if this finds your ears, we'd love to have you on and use our platform as a good sales or marketing platform, because we have such a large reach.
I also like the Work Human, we are actually people here. No robots among us. Right. Humans like you.
I guarantee you they have a slogan or something along the lines of, it's more than just numbers, it's people, or something like that.
Yeah, something banal and just wishy-washy.
Yeah, despite the fact that all of their work is done through algorithms. Not algorithms, people.
People rhythms. Hashtag. So that's John's article. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to go over one that I found that I was a bit of a fan of. Not unsurprisingly, it's a business-focused article that I'm going to try to warp to be more people-centric, because we care about people rhythm here. So that's where we're headed next. So if anybody's familiar with the name McKinsey, it's a relatively well-known firm when it comes to consulting and analytics and helping companies do a better job. John, I know you're familiar with McKinsey.
Yeah, I think anybody in our line of work has at least come across something tangentially related, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's directly or not.
Pretty much. Well, McKinsey has what they call the McKinsey Health Institute, and a few days ago they put out an article titled, "Addressing Employee Burnout, Are You Solving the Right Problem?" Now, for this article, it was all about how to make sure your top performers stay with your business. Not necessarily that concerned with that here. What I'm more concerned about is kind of looking at the reasons people leave, and if there are things that people listening to this show have happening to them, What can you do about it to make your life a little bit better, whether that means staying and addressing it at your company or leaving and going somewhere else? So I'm going to read a little bit about the article. I'll start with a quick summary, which is overall, a lot of companies are trying to do things to address burnout, but a lot of times we're treating the symptom rather than the problem. And that I think is a pretty common thing in most businesses, right? Easiest thing to see is the surface level effect that something has, and you try to treat that. You're just a dog chasing your own tail if you're not trying to find the core reason that bad thing is happening to start with. So in the article, we're talking about a lot of people are feeling some mental health issues. They're feeling more burnout. And to the point of the article, they're leaving their companies trying to find gigs that don't burn them out. Obviously, that's an issue for a lot of companies. So I'm going to read a bit from this article. It's relatively early in it. Many employers have responded by investing more into mental health and well-being than ever before. Across the globe, 4 out of 5 HR leaders report that mental health and well-being is a top priority for their organization. And John, I want to take a quick pause here. Maybe this is just me working at very small companies my entire life, but I don't know of any HR teams who are really that invested in things like mental health of their employees. Mostly it's just making sure payroll gets done and nobody sues the company. Do you have a different experience with HR than I do?
Not really me personally, just because fortunately I haven't been in a position to where I really needed to explore that. I have been given the corporate speak, the spiel that we care, but I don't know if I've ever actually needed to explore that myself. I will say that I know some folks who have, and I know that more often than not, it's just logistical red tape to get through, and it's more of a pain in the ass than anything to kind of get any type of mental health leave or any type of added support from your organization or your company. It's more often than not too much of a pain in the ass to actually get it done. And I've just heard stories of people just kind of dealing with it or going out of pocket for it.
Well, I think the issue is, and I'm going to speak for HR professionals generally when I am not qualified to do that. I've never worked in HR. I don't know anything about HR training or the education they get or the thought or theory or practice of HR. So that's my disclaimer here. But I feel like a lot of the problem when I think of HR, it is to manage the administrative elements of having personnel. And yeah, I guess mental health is part of that insofar as it's a people issue, but I feel like that's beyond the scope of HR departments. It's not what they went to school for. It's not what they have experience in. So I feel like we're shoehorning this almost kind of therapy-esque role into an HR department that was never expecting it and doesn't have the experience in it. Is that fair? Am I kind of painting them too lightly?
There's probably a large shift in culture or expectations in the last, we'll say, 5 years, maybe even a little bit less, maybe the last 2 years. I would say that maybe that is kind of the expectation, or maybe the rule more so than the exception now. From my perspective, I would have to agree that they're not necessarily qualified or equipped to deal with that. They have so many other things that they need to worry about that they're not in a position to really be counseling anybody or be advising on the best way to approach that. I feel like that's something that they would either outsource or kind of kick the can over to somebody else and say, hey, here are the
workhuman.com.
Right, here are the avenues that you can use to explore. Here's our resources.
And actually, this article kind of supports that too. I'm going to read another excerpt kind of about what these employers are doing. Many companies offer a host of wellness benefits such as yoga, meditation app subscriptions, well-being days, and training on time management and productivity. In fact, it's estimated that 9 in 10 organizations around the world offer some form of wellness program. So that sounds good, but to our point, it is a bit superficial, and it does feel like we're treating symptoms, not problems. And the article goes on to say, as laudable as these efforts are, we have found that many employers focus on individual level interventions that remediate symptoms rather than resolve the causes of employee burnout. So I'm going to take this on a bit more of a personal direction too, John, since you just got back from I'm going to say 2/3 relaxing vacation and 1/3 quarantine prison sentence. I think a lot of people at the end of the day feel like I have this vacation coming up. That's all I need. If I can white knuckle it until I get my week off, everything will be okay again. And it's not the case, especially when it comes to burnout. Burnout isn't something that you recharge from over a week or even 2 weeks of vacation, right? It's a constant kind of homeostasis you have to get to where you have enough time each day to recharge from the workload you have, each day to unwind from the stresses that you have. So I think a lot of these wellness programs at work or a lot of these personal measures any of us take, whether it's having a hobby after hours or going on vacation, it's helpful, but it's not enough from a burnout perspective.
So I definitely feel like I got another wind, another push to get me through until the next long break. And that's not to say that I'm not satisfied with my work or I'm not happy at my job. That's more a comment on kind of the corporate culture that you and I exist within. There's not really so much that we can do other than white knuckle it, like you said, and just keep going, because that's how we're programmed to be at this point. If it pleases the court, Brian, I'm going to make reference to Severance from Apple TV Plus. They touched a little bit on this in an article I read in prep for the show that we're not going to feature, but
because we're already at like 40 minutes.
Yeah, but
again, it's you and me bullshitting is the reason these episodes take so damn long. Because if this was just I read this article, I'm going to talk about it. I am now finished. End of episode. It'd be 15 minutes and I'd be done.
Yep.
No, we're bullshitting. So it's like 40 minutes.
But to reel it in again, this article that I read made reference to this Apple TV show. It's called Severance. And it's with Adam Scott. I was looking at some of the other cast members. It seems like a pretty full cast for the most part, but Adam Scott is I guess basically
a dude from Parks and Rec, right? That's the only thing I know him from.
Yes, yeah. So Parks and Rec, he's the Derek, the brother from Step Brothers. So remember the car scene?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. 2 things I've seen him in. Well, I guess this will be a third if I see this show.
Big Little Lies, he was in. He's been in a bunch of stuff. He has a. Okay, now we're definitely going off topic, but he has a podcast where it's him and I think it's Scott Aukerman from Comedy Bang Bang. But to go back to the premise of the show, it's a sci-fi thriller. Basically, I don't know if it's near future or supposed to be present day, but you can surgically separate the parts of your brain. You have your work brain and your home brain. It sounds like dystopian, but it also sounds like almost like Black Mirror, something that could happen in the near future. So creepy, but very intriguing and interesting, and I'm definitely going to be exploring that as part of the discussion of the show. I know this is kind of a long-winded way to get back to the original point, and if that's not what we do on this pod, then why are you listening? But the idea of kind of having these 2 separate lives is kind of almost problematic in itself, and I say lives, but these 2 separate mindsets, and we feel that burnout because it's starting to creep home with us. It's starting to follow us. And that's not something that happened as a result of the pandemic. That's been going on well before that. I would argue even before like laptops and things like that. But the idea being that we grew accustomed, or we were sold this idea that you can separate these 2. That's never really been the case. And as a result, we feel unsatisfied a lot of the time.
Let me ask you something, because this is definitely true of me. All right. Do you ever have stress dreams either about when you were in school or a particularly stressful job?
I probably all the time. I think majority of my nightmares are revolving around work conversations or school. Like, doesn't everybody have that same like recurring nightmare or that cliche dream to where it's like you're presenting in front of the class and you're in your underwear or something like that, right?
So I don't have that one, but I'll tell you the one that I do have. And this comes down to my constant fear that I'm not prepped enough or that I'm forgetting something. I have a constant recurring dream. It's not every night, but I'm going to say like once a quarter, I'll have this dream where I'm on campus for the first day of a semester and I know I'm supposed to be in class. I don't know what class and I don't know where it is. And of no, I'm like, well, I guess I'm not going today. And it's stressful, but it's constant. And I think it does leak from, we're all so busy. I have so many projects that I'm trying to juggle and keep spinning plates in the air. I'm always worried I'm forgetting something. So I have that. And I also have a dream specifically about the first job I had out of college where I felt a bit out of my depth and everything's going wrong at once. Everybody's asking me for help and I just shut down in this dream. Like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do right now. And I think that's those dreams, those kind of things are a symptom of what you're talking about, where, yeah, we try to compartmentalize as much as we can, but it's not always possible to do that. Maybe consciously, definitely not subconsciously. And that's where these dreams come from. So going back to this McKinsey article, how do we look a bit deeper than that surface level of burnout to really get to the root cause? There are a few different dimensions that McKinsey's saying are important for us to concern ourselves with and try to solve from the company standpoint to keep us around, but from our standpoint to keep our sanity. Toxic workplace behavior, sustainable work, inclusivity and belonging, supportive growth environments, freedom from stigma, organizational commitment, leadership accountability, and access to resources. And that's a kind of a big laundry list of things. A few of these I think are pretty clear. Toxic workplace behavior. I think we've talked about toxic workplace behavior here. I know we've done episodes on specifically toxic work, so I don't think there's too many questions here.
Yeah, no, we've we've dived into that ad nauseum.
Inclusivity and belonging, organizational systems leaders and peers foster a welcoming and fair environment. I feel like this is a hard one for a lot of companies. I think a lot of companies have that good old boys club going on, and a lot of it is if you're in the club, you can do no wrong, and everybody else gets viewed under a slightly different microscope. So of all of these, I would say if anybody's feeling burnout, I feel like that would be one of them, kind of that double standard that a lot of people face.
I think there's a part of it, too, that's kind of performative when it is that way. So when you describe that good old boys club, there's that constant, putting on the best face because you want to be in the good graces of that club or you want to be a member of that club. And the goal is to basically schmooze your way to the top for a lot of folks. And that could just be so damn exhausting, especially if you're losing steam, kind of overall losing just motivation.
Yeah, and the insidious part there is because we're all trying to get in that club, we're all also at the same time kind of putting a rubber stamp of approval on it too, saying that this is the right way to do things, this is how it should be, where I think this isn't a great thing to have in our office and we should all fight against it, but no, we're all trying to climb the ladder in the same way, and doing so kind of en masse validates it, which is a problem. Next one, sustainable work. Organization and leaders promote work that enables a healthy balance between work and personal life. Cue the name of the podcast, including a manageable workload and work schedule. I know I'm not alone in feeling like this is getting further and further out of reach for me.
So it might be a little insidious, but I think there's this kind of silent rebellion among workers at a certain point to where it's almost like I'm going to hot dog it or, kind of slack off to just the right amount to where I do just either the bare minimum or enough to where I can continue to fly under the radar. And then there's kind of this weird gray area to where it's like I could do a little bit more and it's so impressive. And then maybe I get myself a promotion out of it. And then what happens? You kind of take on more work. It feels like there's this kind of collective understanding that all of us who are kind of the worker bees, the cogs in the machine, don't do too much, don't do too little, because then you ruin it for the rest of us. And I don't know, do you kind of get a similar vibe or feel that kind of exists in a certain degree?
100%. And I'll tell you what I think the issue is. It's a communication issue. I'll give you an example of what I mean. Let's say I'm overworked, overallocated, and I have a conversation with my boss or my boss's boss about it where they say, hey, we need you to take care of this one more project. And I say, guys, I'm overloaded. I got nothing else to give you. That's not going to be received well, right? Even if it's true, even if I'm working 60 hours in a 40-hour span, that's not going to be well received by higher ups who want a can-do attitude at all costs, right? We romanticize this get it done attitude even when we're not given the resources to do it. So what's the response? Is to do kind of what you just said, which is find little ways to slack here and there. And that's not a work from home thing, by the way. That's people have found industrious ways to be not industrious in the office.
We were doing it well before the work from home. It's just different things that you're doing now.
Yeah,
I'm doing laundry instead of roaming the work kitchenette for 15 minutes looking for anybody to talk to at the water cooler.
Right. It's if I felt that I could go to my boss and constructively have a conversation about my allocation to where it could actually get solved, I don't think that would be an issue for most people, but because they know they can't. That's why they do these kind of, like, I think you used the term under the radar kind of, that's why it happens that way. So yeah, I think it's definitely an issue, and whole great resignation thing's not making it easier. A lot of companies are losing people, and the few people who are left are being asked to stretch farther and farther, but not really given the resources. And it's not even just not being given the resources. Another chagrin of mine, a lot of companies aren't just having trouble hiring, they're acting like they're not, right? So there's this elephant in the room in management meetings about personnel and resource allocation where nobody's actually talking about the fact that we're losing people in all of these industries in a number of areas in the country. We're not talking about that. We're not making business decisions based on it. And if we're not willing to recognize the issue, of course we're not going to address it properly, right?
For every 3 that are walking, it's like you're hiring one more. That's not fixing anything. But...
Yes, it's not even maintenance at that point. It's not even maintenance level hiring. Next up, supportive growth environment. Managers care about employee opinions, well-being, and satisfaction, and provide support and enable opportunities for growth. I'd love for this to be the case, and I think a lot of managers want to do this, but everything we just talked about prior to this point, everybody's just trying to keep up and maintain operations. I don't know that there's enough gas in the tank for management to really, unfortunately, care about a lot of that as much as they should. They're trying to keep the lights on, right? So
I'm a broken record on this pod, if nothing else, but the cynical view of that, the cynical perspective is that really people only want to do enough just to cover their own ass, and that extends beyond just you. That extends to your manager and their manager and their manager. You're always looking out for, number one.
Now this next one is an issue, and I know it's not going to be solved by anytime soon by any significant number of organizations, because I think it's really cultural, at least in the U.S. it is. Freedom from stigma and discrimination. Freedom from the level of shame, prejudice, or discrimination employees perceive towards people with mental health or substance abuse conditions. Not qualified to talk about the substance abuse part of that, but as far as the mental health thing goes, again, talking about burnout, our culture is that can-do, overextend yourself, under-promise, over-deliver mindset, and we romanticize the guy who puts it all on the line working 80 hours a week at the expense of his family. It's just... the country's always been that way. And I think it's turning around now. And hopefully the number of people who listen to our show, they see value in what I'm talking about here. I think it is turning around. But I think we're a very far way away from this freedom from stigma about needing personal time or needing self-care. I don't see those on the immediate horizon for most of the C-suite out there.
I don't disagree at all, and I think there absolutely is still a stigma around substance abuse and those types of tendencies and issues. So I know you say we're not qualified to speak on that, and I 100% agree, but just from an outsider's perspective, I know that exists.
So there's 3 more things on the list, and I'm going to group them together just for the sake of time, and also because I think collectively, John, they do dovetail nicely into the article that you selected for today. Organizational accountability, leadership commitment, and access to resources. And I think the common trend among all 3 of these things is, what is it that leadership is recognizing as their responsibility to their people, and as a result, what are they giving out to those people as a lifeline? Looking at things like is the organization actually trying to track these things? Going back to the whole, you already said it's not WeWork. What's it called? We are human.
Work
human worker.
human. Yeah.
Work human. Yeah, are companies like WorkHuman tracking KPIs to make sure people are as not burnout or as burnout as we think they are? And then based on that, are leaders actually making that a top priority to address, or are they more or less sweeping it under the rug? Part of that addressing the issue is giving access to those resources, things people can do to really address their mental health needs. And that's going to be either resources, or I would say also giving time off and things like that when people need it, or encouraging people to take the time off they already earned. So I don't know how far companies are going in any of those three directions. John, I think the article that you read at least suggests it's something that's becoming more top of mind.
I think either way, it shows that this is something that's a topic of conversation at the very least. So that, hey, if we're talking about it, I guess that's a good first step.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, what my thought has been and what I like about this article and what I think validates my position, which is when we look at all of those factors that McKinsey's saying are at issue, none of those things are solved easily. None of those things are solved quickly. And more to the point, taking a vacation isn't going to really help. Getting a massage in the office, if you work at Google or other companies who offer that kind of amenity, it's not going to do it either. It takes a systemic change to the way we work. And a large part of that is making sure we have a workload that actually is sustainable for us to get done every day, every week, every month. So I think that's the hard part. It's easy to throw money at a problem when it comes to buying these kinds of programs for people, but they're all symptom treatments. They're not treating the actual cause.
Hey, you said it best, brother.
The last note I want to leave off on from the article is this. A lot of companies laud employees who have flexibility and who can react and pivot when it comes to facing adversities like these. And that's great for the employee, but it's not so great for the employer. This research found that employees with a high degree of adaptability were actually 60% more likely to report intent to leave their organization if they experience high levels of things like toxic work behavior. So it's not so much that being adaptable is a good thing for an employee to be from a company perspective. It's actually those people who are more likely to recognize the situation's a bad one and leave. So I think where I would want to leave off this episode from my perspective is these are all red flags that we should look for. So when you're thinking about what kind of burnout you're feeling, think about the long-term effect. Think about the solutions that are in front of you and if they're actually applicable and they can actually help you solve burnout. And if they're not, what would actually get you there? So that's going to do it for me. John, I don't know if you have anything. Well, we went for about an hour already. I don't know what it's going to be after we finish editing, but long episode today.
Yeah, and we're both old heads now, so we're tired.
I don't know if you listened to the episodes I did while you were on vacation, but I did an entire episode about me being tired. So, yeah.
Like I said, we're old heads.
All right, well, thank you all. Welcome back, John. Glad you had a good trip back from quarantine. And we'll see everybody else out there next week for another John and Brian episode moving forward.
Look forward to it. Until next time.
Thanks for listening to the Big Balance Podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And hey, drop us a comment while you're there. Until next time.
Adam Scott, fully stopped bar. 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 Adam Scott.